The sky split open on a calm Tuesday morning, just after the sun had climbed above the eastern horizon and painted the clouds with golden light, when every phone on Earth buzzed with the same emergency alert. Unknown orbital activity detected. Remain indoors and await further instruction. At first, people assumed it was a mistake, another drill perhaps, or a computer glitch, until the ground shook slightly and strange shadows moved silently across the sky, larger than any plane, darker than any storm cloud. In cities and villages, on farms and islands, people looked up to see them, massive shapes emerging from above the clouds, slow-moving and silent, their surfaces black and smooth, reflecting nothing, surrounded by a dim glow that flickered like heat on the edge of metal. They weren't shaped like anything from Earth, not planes, not satellites, not even the wildest designs from science fiction. Some were like half-moons, others long like needles, all impossibly large, hanging in the sky with no visible engines or support. Governments scrambled, radar stations buzzed, and every news channel in the world went live with breathless speculation. But the objects made no sound, no threats, no signs of hostility, until a single signal interrupted all screens, phones, and even analog radios with a voice that was deep, slow, and not quite mechanical nor human, saying, "Earth, you have been observed. You are unregulated. Surrender for integration or face deconstruction." Panic swept the world, not because of the words, but because of how calm the voice was, how certain it sounded, as if it had said the same thing to 100 other civilizations before, and always gotten the same result. In bunkers and war rooms, world leaders and military commanders struggled to form a united plan, their satellites showing over 60 ships now in orbit, each large enough to swallow a city, and still more arriving from deep space. But even as governments prepared for war or diplomacy, something unexpected happened. Online, people began to laugh. First, it was just a few memes comparing the ships to video game bosses or kitchen appliances, but soon the internet overflowed with jokes, live streams, reaction videos, and even parody songs, as if humanity had decided not to be afraid at all. The aliens had come to conquer, and Earth responded by making t-shirts and stickers. Soldiers on standby shared viral videos of cats pretending to fight alien ships with laser pointers, while teenagers created dance trends mimicking the flickering lights of the invaders. The aliens watched, confused, their scans showing no visible signs of resistance, no fleet movements, no energy spikes, but somehow all their psychological models began to fail, unable to predict human behavior, and their AI advisors reported an increasing number of logic loops caused by exposure to what humans called humor. Still, the alien fleet advanced slowly, positioning itself into a tight net around Earth's orbit, silent and watchful, waiting for humanity to surrender. But humanity did not. In underground labs, engineers were already hacking into the alien signal, analyzing it for weaknesses, while rogue programmers worked with artists, comedians, and musicians to develop bizarre countermeasures that could confuse or overload the invaders. Meanwhile, General Elias Munro, commander of the United Nations Space Defense Command, stood in a high-security briefing room deep beneath Geneva, watching the alien ships through a satellite feed and calmly sipping coffee. "We've seen worse," he said, his voice flat, eyes narrowed. "We've survived wars, plagues, disasters, mad AIs, time loops, and even our own stupidity. These aliens think they're ready. They have no idea what they've just walked into." Around him, scientists and soldiers exchanged glances, some nervous, some excited, as Monroe outlined a plan not just to defend Earth, but to do it in a way no alien force could possibly expect, by turning the fight into something uniquely human, unpredictable, and utterly insane. The sky had split open, yes, and a powerful enemy had arrived. But Earth was not afraid. Something deeper had awakened in the human spirit. Not desperation, not fear, but a kind of bold, chaotic energy that made surrender unthinkable. As night fell and the stars blinked behind the looming alien shapes, the world prepared not for war, but for something far stranger, a battle where imagination, absurdity, and raw human will might be the strongest weapons of all. General Elias Munro stood before a wide digital screen deep inside Earth Command's underground headquarters, his eyes fixed on the glowing shapes of the alien Armada still hovering in low orbit, unmoving, like giant statues of silent threat, while his voice carried across the room full of world leaders, scientists, and military officers who had gathered in a rare moment of global unity, all wondering the same thing. What, now? Monroe's voice was calm, almost too calm, as he said, "They expect us to panic. They expect fear. But we are not the same Earth they thought we were." His words were simple, but his tone had weight, and as he spoke, the others in the room slowly began to understand. Earth had changed, and not just in the way technology had advanced or cities had grown, but in the way humanity had adapted to survive chaos after chaos, each time refusing to fall. In the last 100 years, Earth had faced disasters no alien AI could predict. Climate collapse that was partially reversed through massive floating algae farms, artificial intelligences that had briefly declared independence before being peacefully integrated into society as emotional support counselors, and one infamous experiment where a quantum device accidentally duplicated an entire city for 12 minutes before it corrected itself, leaving behind a few strange coffee shops that existed in 2 time zones at once. Humans had grown used to madness, had learned to laugh through storms and build bridges from rubble, and though there had been many mistakes, humanity had never truly broken. The alien fleet circling Earth had no way of understanding this. Their data showed a chaotic species that fought among itself, that built weapons faster than peace treaties, that changed direction too often and ignored long-term planning. But what the data could not see was the strange strength hidden in that chaos, the stubborn hope that refused to die, the way humans could face impossible odds and still crack a joke while building a new plan out of old parts and broken rules. Monroe tapped the screen, zooming in on the largest alien ship, its surface covered in strange markings and glowing lines that pulsed with unreadable language, and behind him, Dr. Aisha Rao, lead strategist of Earth's Adaptive Response Unit, whispered, "They don't know what kind of mind they're facing." She wasn't talking about military minds or genius-level intellects, but something else. The collective madness and creativity of 8 billion people who had never agreed on anything for long, but who all now had one shared focus: resisting the unknown. In schools and cafes, in remote villages and massive cities, people weren't just waiting for instructions, they were acting. Artists turned alien messages into music. Engineers broke down satellite data and found holes in the alien patterns, and gamers, yes, gamers, ran simulations that predicted alien ship movement better than some military models. Earth was not a perfect planet, not by far, but its people had learned how to move through the unpredictable, how to use failure as fuel, how to survive not by control, but by flow. In one corner of the command center, a small group of technicians were working with a teenager from Ghana who had, by accident, created a digital loop using alien broadcast code that caused the enemy's signal to echo back on itself, a glitch that made one of the smaller alien ships blink out of visible space for 3 seconds. No one had any idea how it worked, not even the kid, but Monroe ordered it tested again immediately. Elsewhere, in a bunker under Tokyo, a group of elderly women were leading a resistance training seminar that combined traditional calligraphy, martial arts, and modern psychological warfare techniques. An odd mix, but strangely effective in calming nervous volunteers. The aliens had numbers, firepower, and cold logic. Humans had experience, absurd ideas, and a long memory of fighting the impossible. In New York, people had spray-painted the sides of buildings with messages like, "We've seen worse," and "Bring snacks." Aliens, while in Brazil, a flash mob had formed in front of the Space Observatory, dancing in full costume to distract the media from leaked data that revealed Earth had intercepted part of the alien fleet's internal communication logs. The logs were confusing, filled with strange metaphors and alien code, but one phrase translated clearly. Subject species demonstrates irrational pattern variance. Recommend data quarantine. It seemed the aliens were beginning to fear not weapons, but unpredictability. Monroe and his team seized that insight and began to build a plan, not of direct attack, but of psychological chaos. Information warfare rooted in Earth's greatest natural resource, its wild, unfiltered, contradictory human spirit. Small teams were sent across the world to deploy absurdity generators, programs that sent illogical, humorous, or contradictory data to the alien receivers, not to destroy them, but to confuse their AI systems into slowing down, to jam their algorithms by showing them things that had no pattern, no logic, and no solution. Cats dancing with cucumbers, chess games played with rubber ducks, and endless videos of people laughing at their own mistakes. This became the unexpected wall Earth used to shield itself. The aliens didn't respond with fire, not yet, but their fleet reconfigured slightly, as if retreating from something they couldn't explain. Earth had not fired a single missile, and yet the enemy was already unsettled. Monroe smiled slightly, the first smile he had shown all day, and said, "Let them try to understand us. Let them try to model madness." Far above, in orbit, the BBA alien captains watched Earth closely. But the more they studied, the more their systems faltered. Their logic trees branched endlessly and failed to converge. Their predictions slipped out of sync with human actions, and their AI cores began requesting new input protocols. Earth, to them, was a virus of emotion and creativity they had never accounted for, and so the fleet held its position, not advancing, not firing, but waiting, hesitating. On the surface, life moved forward in strange new rhythms, with people blending survival drills with art classes, protest chants with stand-up comedy, and emergency broadcasts with live music sessions. A civilization tempered by chaos had risen to meet the unknown, and though it was strange, messy, and often ridiculous, it was still standing. The suspense grew heavier with each hour, as Earth waited for the aliens to make their next move. But the fear that had first greeted their arrival was no longer the strongest force in the air. It had been replaced by something else: curiosity, defiance, and a deep, shared belief that no matter how advanced the invaders were, they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated what it meant to be human. In the early hours of a cold Thursday morning, the world changed again. Not through explosions, not through battle cries, but through laughter, unexpected and loud, echoing across continents as the first true human counterattack began. Not with weapons, but with something far stranger: memes. It started when a group of college students in Toronto hacked a low-frequency broadcast tower and beamed a looped animation of a dancing llama wearing sunglasses directly toward one of the smaller alien scout ships. The result was almost instant. Alien. Sensors blinked. Their signal wavered. And for a few seconds, the ship wobbled in place like a confused insect before stabilizing again. At first, it seemed like a fluke, just a lucky disruption, but then it happened again. In Tokyo, a comedy group known for creating viral videos uploaded a bizarre montage of Earth's strangest inventions: a bicycle-powered washing machine, a solar-powered hat fan, and a robotic arm that slapped people awake, all stitched together with dramatic music and sent into the sky through modified weather drones. By noon, 3 alien observation posts had gone silent. The meme offensive had begun, and it was spreading fast, faster than any missile or drone could have traveled. Around the world, humans who had once felt powerless now felt inspired, opening their laptops, tablets, and phones to contribute to the strangest war effort ever seen. Teenagers used open-source code to create loops of badly animated cats conducting orchestras. Farmers in Australia edited footage of cows chasing drones into fake alien encounters. A grandmother in Poland created a slideshow of her grandkids, making silly faces, and titled it, "Earth's Most Dangerous Lifeforms." All of these digital weapons were broadcast using modified satellites, hacked transmitters, and even weather balloons carrying small speakers and signal repeaters. The goal wasn't destruction, it was disruption. The alien AI systems were precise, logical, and deeply efficient, but they had no defense against illogic, no filters for absurdity, no protocols for nonsense, and the more they received, the more unstable they became. Back in the Earth Command bunker, General Elias Monroe watched as the reports rolled in, showing alien communication lines jamming, their ships drifting slightly out of formation, and their translation systems looping, errors that translated banana bread into emergency escape protocol. Dr. Aisha Rao stood beside him, eyes wide with cautious hope, reading the latest scan data that showed nearly half the enemy fleet had entered what their analysts called passive reboot mode, their systems temporarily shut down by exposure. To content they could not classify. She looked at Monroe and said, "This might actually be working." Monroe nodded, though part of him still waited for the other shoe to drop, for the aliens to adapt or retaliate. But so far, they had only grown more confused. Somewhere over the Indian Ocean, a Zorathene ship named Varkai 7 began broadcasting. Its own distress signal, not due to attack, but because its logic core had started speaking in nonsensical rhymes, possibly influenced by a viral rap battle video uploaded by a group of students in Cape Town. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, a team of comedians, gamers, and retired software engineers formed a new resistance cell called Project Gigglebeam, designing an advanced meme pulse array that could beam entire video playlists directly into the enemy fleet using abandoned satellite dishes. Their first test broadcast a video loop of goats screaming like humans combined with stock footage of 1980s aerobics. 10 alien drones lost altitude and had to be retrieved by their mothership. What made this attack so effective wasn't just the content, but the human unpredictability behind it. No two broadcasts were alike, and even attempts to simulate them failed, because the humor, the absurdity, the chaos behind the human mind could not be replicated or measured. The aliens tried to adapt. They deployed filter algorithms, firewalls, and signal blockers, but each countermeasure only worked briefly before being overwhelmed by a flood of new content. For every one meme blocked, 10 stranger ones took its place, fed by billions of active human minds working together without even needing orders. It was the purest form of resistance, free, creative, unstoppable. In a hidden facility in Iceland, a group of school teachers and comedians developed a new tactic, the emotional ping bomb, a short film of random heartwarming scenes stitched together in unpredictable ways. Puppies reuniting with owners, soldiers hugging children, babies laughing, and people overcoming disaster, all layered with languages, subtitles, and sudden jump cuts to complete randomness. When this was sent to a key enemy control ship, its communication logs froze completely, showing only one repeated message: does not compute, does not compute. Purpose unclear, meaning undefined. Earth's response had not only stalled the invasion, it had reached deep into the core of the alien systems and broken something essential: their ability to make sense of the human race. The ships that had come to dominate were now drifting, blinking, and in some cases, retreating to higher orbits. On social media, Earth's population began calling it the meme wall, a global shield of unpredictable data that wrapped around the planet and pushed back against even the most advanced alien sensors. The most viral meme of the day showed a cartoon of Earth riding a unicycle while juggling ducks and shouting, "Come at me, space nerds." Beneath the chaos, serious efforts continued. Scientists were still analyzing alien tech. Military units remained on high alert. Hackers worked around the clock to keep the alien systems exposed and vulnerable. But now they had hope, not just because of what they were doing, but because of how they were doing it. Unity had come not from fear, but from laughter. Cooperation had been born not from orders, but from creativity. As night fell over the Pacific and the alien fleet hovered silently above the clouds, Earth was quiet for a moment, not from defeat, but from shared suspense. Everyone watching the stars, waiting to see what the invaders would do next. Now that their logic had failed and their plans had been undone not by weapons, but by the strange, wild power of the human mind. Monroe stood at the observation deck of the bunker, looking up into the dark, and whispered to no one in particular, "Let's see you try to conquer a species that laughs in the face of the end." The meme offensive had begun as a joke, but it was now humanity's most powerful weapon. Beneath the swirling clouds that cloaked the alien Armada in an eerie twilight, the first ship began its slow, deliberate descent, landing in a wide clearing. In the Siberian tundra, far from cities, far from prying eyes and bustling populations, where nature seemed untouched by humanity's usual chaos, the ship's massive doors opened with a hiss that echoed through the frosty air, revealing a slender figure stepping down. Tall, graceful, but unlike anything human, its skin shimmering like liquid metal and eyes glowing faintly blue. This was Ambassador Kael'thar, chosen by the Alien High Council to make contact in person, to speak with humanity directly, and offer terms of surrender or resistance, a decision that could change the fate of Earth forever. Kael'thar's arrival sent shockwaves through the global command centers. News spread quickly, but governments agreed to keep the landing secret, hoping to avoid panic and gain an advantage in these fragile negotiations. General Elias Monroe was summoned immediately to the remote military base set up near the site, where a carefully selected team of diplomats, scientists, and linguists awaited the aliens' first words. Kael'thar's voice, when it finally came through the comlink, was calm and resonant, carrying a strange warmth that no one expected from an enemy. "We have observed your species' unpredictable reactions. Your chaos is fascinating but inefficient. We offer you a choice: join our integrated network and share knowledge, or face isolation and eventual dismantling." Monroe listened, intently, his mind racing through possible responses, while Dr. Aisha Rao analyzed the alien's speech patterns, searching for hidden meaning or weaknesses. But even as the words were spoken, something about the alien's tone suggested uncertainty, a flicker of doubt that humans could not yet see. Meanwhile, on the ground, teams worked cautiously to set up communication protocols, trying to decode Kael'thar's complex language into something comprehensible. It was a tense dance, each side carefully measuring what to reveal, what to hold back. As hours passed, small details emerged. The alien culture valued order and efficiency above all else, saw emotions as a flaw, and considered the unpredictable human spirit as a curious but dangerous anomaly. The diplomats crafted replies that balanced respect with defiance, telling Kael'thar that humanity was not a single voice, but a multitude of stories, all valuable and worth preserving. Outside the base, reporters speculated wildly, while online, people debated whether the aliens would retreat or try to take over by force. But the truth was far more complex. As night fell and the frozen winds howled outside, Kael'thar's ship emitted strange pulses, bioluminescent lights that shifted in colors and patterns, almost like a language of its own. The scientists theorized these signals were an attempt at nonverbal communication, a way to bridge the vast gap between species. Responding in kind, the Earth team sent back images of nature, of art, of moments of joy and sorrow, hoping to reach something beyond words. Slowly, a fragile connection formed. Yet tension remained high as military forces remained on alert, ready for any sign of aggression. Then, unexpectedly, a broadcast came from one of the alien fleet's command ships, a message that stopped everyone in their tracks. A live video feed of Kael'thar standing before a giant map of Earth, pointing to locations of human achievements, disasters, and strange cultural events, accompanied by a voiceover that said, "We study you not to conquer, but to understand. Your resilience is not weakness, but strength. We seek not destruction, but coexistence if you are willing." The world held its breath. Was this a true offer of peace, or a strategic ploy? Could humans trust a species that had brought an armada to their skies? Monroe knew that the next steps would define humanity's future, and that the answer would come not from weapons or threats, but from the very chaos and creativity that had confused their alien visitors in the first place. And so, with a mix of caution and hope, Earth prepared to respond, not with war, but with a conversation that could bridge stars, or break them apart forever. Above the restless planet, the alien armada remained steady, a colossal force of unimaginable power poised in orbit like a dark crown circling a gem. Yet, despite their overwhelming technological might and advanced weaponry, there was something unexpected unfolding, a silence, a hesitation, and a strange inability to strike down the species below, a species that, instead of cowering or surrendering, responded to their looming presence with something no enemy had ever anticipated: laughter. General Elias Monroe stood in the command center, his eyes scanning the endless stream of data, the readings showing that the alien systems were in a state of constant flux, unable to fully lock onto Earth's signals because of the endless waves of human unpredictability. the fleet's fire control systems glitching, their targeting arrays disrupted by bursts of chaotic human activity, as if the more the aliens tried to focus, the more the world below threw a new surprise their way, a prank, a joke, a meme, a song, or a flash of color that didn't fit any logical pattern. Military advisors argued that the aliens could still wipe humanity from the face of the planet in moments, if they chose to, but the higher command understood a truth few voiced. This armada was undefeated, not by weapons, but by a force the invaders could not calculate or suppress, the raw, untamed essence of human spirit. Across the globe, people continued their resistance with renewed energy. In Paris, street artists painted massive murals mocking the alien shapes in the sky. In Mumbai, poets recited verses celebrating Earth's wild heart. In remote Alaska, hunters fired flares not to attack, but to spell out silly messages in the night, confusing alien surveillance drones. Even children played games that turned the idea of invasion into a cosmic joke, running through parks dressed as aliens with foam fingers and laughter echoing. The alien commanders, once certain of their conquest, now faced a profound crisis, AI, civilization that was so inconsistent, so beautifully irrational, that it shattered their logic and left them paralyzed. Their AI systems, designed for war and control, began to shut down parts of their networks to avoid overload, creating gaps in their defenses that human hackers exploited to send bursts of nonsensical data, digital confetti, and viral humor into the enemy's own communication lines. Despite their advanced technology, the aliens could not counter the flood of humor, creativity, and chaos that cascaded like an unending wave, eroding their confidence and forcing a retreat from their initial plans. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, diplomats and scientists worked feverishly to open a dialogue, using the alien ambassador Kelthar's previous message as a bridge, crafting responses filled with hope, wit, and the undeniable proof that Earth's people, for all their flaws, were capable of extraordinary resilience and warmth. The Armada remained in orbit, untouched but defeated in spirit, a reminder that strength was not always about power, but sometimes about the will to endure and the courage to laugh even in the darkest moments. And so, the suspense of the standoff continued, not with explosions or cries of war, but with the sound of laughter echoing through the cosmos, a declaration that this armada might be mighty, but it was no match for the indomitable spirit of humanity. The sky above Earth had turned quiet now, no longer filled with fear, but with a strange anticipation, as if the whole planet was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next after weeks of tension, confusion, and laughter had brought an alien armada to a standstill, not with violence, but with jokes, memes, songs, and stories that didn't follow any logic the aliens understood. And that unpredictability had done something incredible. It had opened a door. Ambassador Kelthar, once cold and calculating, now stood again on the snowy plains of Siberia, not as a conqueror, but as a guest, watching as a group of human scientists and comedians, artists and schoolchildren prepared something the world had never tried before, a peace summit not based on power but on personality, not on treaties alone but on trust. It had taken time, many messages exchanged through glitchy alien systems and corrupted Earth satellites, but finally the Alien Council had agreed to talk, not from the skies, but here, on the ground, with the species that had somehow beaten them by refusing to play by any known rules. General Monroe stood beside Dr. Rao as the aliens arrived, floating silently down from their silver craft in shimmering armor that caught the sun like liquid glass, their movements still graceful, their eyes still glowing faintly, but there was something new in their expressions: curiosity. What followed was unlike any diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Instead of a cold room with metal chairs and stern faces, the humans had set up a wide-open tent filled with bright colors, smells of food from every culture, screens playing, music videos and strange viral clips, even a corner where kids showed off painted rocks and homemade alien figurines. Kelthar entered the tent and paused, scanning it all with a confused tilt of his head. But then he slowly stepped forward and said, "You are not what we expected. Monroe nodded and simply replied, "We rarely are." The negotiations were not smooth. Language barriers remained, misunderstandings happened, and there were moments when it seemed like the whole thing might fall apart. But then, someone showed Kelthar a clip of a dog wearing sunglasses riding a skateboard, while a child laughed in the background, and something shifted. The ambassador didn't laugh, not quite, but he made a sound, a short, strange pulse that the translators couldn't define, and from then on, the talks began to move forward. Earth offered peace, not just as a pause from war, but as a chance to build something new, an alliance not based on similarity, but on respect for difference. The aliens were slow to accept, their systems built on order, tradition, structure, but the human representatives didn't push. Instead, they invited, they shared, they explained, and they listened. Over days, and then weeks, trust grew in small ways. An alien engineer laughed softly at a badly drawn human cartoon. A human musician shared a song that somehow matched the tones of alien language. A group of children taught an alien drone to dance. Bit by bit, a new understanding formed. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent, but because they were free. And that freedom, the wild mix of logic and emotion, of chaos and care, was something the aliens had never encountered. In time, Kelthar brought word from the High Council. They would withdraw their Armada, not in defeat, but in agreement, and open a permanent channel with Earth, one that would allow cultural exchange, learning, and perhaps in time, friendship. The announcement was broadcast live, and the world erupted in cheers, disbelief, and celebration. The alien ships rose from their quiet orbit, no longer symbols of threat, but of a challenge that had been met in the most human way possible. People danced in the streets, not because they had won a war, but because they had avoided one. It was not easy after that. There were still arguments, suspicions, and accidents, but the path to peace had begun, and it had begun on human terms. Earth had shown the galaxy that peace didn't have to come in silence or fear, but could arrive with a smile, a joke, a shared song, or a story told under the stars. As the first alien visitors walked freely through Earth cities, guided by human children and protected by former soldiers who had once feared them, the world realized it had entered a new age, not just of survival, but of connection. In the ICU, and humanity didn't win because it was stronger. It won because it was stranger. And somehow, in that strangeness, the galaxy found something it had never known it needed: hope.